You can holler, you can applaud, you can scream, you can do anything you want. I can't hear you anyway.
Welcome to the SLDirt podcast. I'm your host, Kyler Bingham. Today on the show, we have author Liska Jacobs, author of the novels Catalina and The Worst Kind of Want. First one came out in 2017, the second one last year. These are two of my favorite books that I've read in recent memory. I was really excited to talk to Liska. Definitely one of my favorite authors of I don't even know how long. So it was a real treat to talk to her. Without further ado, let's talk to Liska Jacobs.
Yay!
Sorry about that.
No, I started thinking maybe everybody does Zoom meetings at 6 o'clock.
I don't know about you, but I am done with Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I use it every day, so that's why I was like, what is going on?
I had a meeting earlier today with UCLA Extension, and I was like, it just seems all of a sudden very antiquated already, you know?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you were in the misfortune of being in Zoom calls where you have like 15, 20 people, and it's just it's a waste. I don't know why we even try to fool ourselves.
I know. Well, I'm going to be teaching like a writing workshop using, and it was going to be on campus, but now it's going to be on Zoom. So it's just going to be, 12 people sitting in a Zoom room.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, I saw the email there. So I was going to ask you that. You're teaching over there at the extension program?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's my first time. Yeah, I'll be teaching novel 1 in the fall, which, I mean, it'll be unlike what I imagined, which was, because I used to go to, oh, that's me. Sorry, let me turn that off. I used to be a student at UCLA Extension, maybe over a decade ago.
Okay.
So I was all excited to return, and teach a workshop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a small world because, Tony Duchesne, he teaches over there, and he's the one who told me about Catalina a few years ago. So we're good friends.
Oh, really?
He's like, you have to read Catalina. And then I interviewed Stephen J. Schwartz last night. And so he was like going off on you, like in a good way. He was talking about, he said that he, like, I asked him, what do you, if you're kind of stuck with writing, like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I read a few different things. I'll read Bukowski, I'll read Fight Club again. And then I read this book called Catalina by Liska Jacobs.
What?
So, yeah, that's what he said. He's like, for character development. I'm like, I know, it's not the best. It's such a great book. So
wow.
Yeah, they love it.
That's very flattering. I mean,
yeah,
Stephen and I he was in Todd Goldberg. He was our instructor at UCR Palm Desert Low Residency Program, and Stephen was in that class with me. So he read like a very early draft of Catalina, actually, or an excerpt of it anyways.
Right. That's what he was telling me. That's so cool. Well, that's sweet. You're going to be teaching there. That'll be fun. I mean, unfortunate, like the online thing, but hopefully.
Oh my God, it's crazy. I mean, because you have to take basically your entire course, and writing is already sort of something that's difficult to teach or talk about.
Sure.
So to then take that and put it into a computer and try to like me trying to explain to the guy who sets up Canvas how a writing workshop usually goes. He was like, but what assignments do they turn in? And I'm like, that's not really. He was like, well, what about, like the midterm? And I was like, no, there's not, that's not really the same. There's no midterm.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I use Canvas. I'm a high school teacher, so I use Canvas. I use, like last term when we went online, I really kind of hit the module tab pretty hard. So I had stuff laid out so that you don't have to have assignments in there. You can just have little exercises or articles.
That's what he was showing me today, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a lot more work than I thought it was going to be.
It sucks.
Yeah, I've always respected teachers, but after learning a little bit about Canvas in 1 week, I'm just like, well, no one gets paid enough. This is just
no, absolutely
ludicrous.
Well, thanks for talking to me. I mean, I've read both the books. I read both the books.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, I've read Catalina twice.
Oh.
And then I've read this one. Yeah, I was kind of want, and then I read Lolita immediately after this. And it was
It
funny
was
because
heavily inspired.
yeah, and then I didn't know that after I read it, and then I heard an interview with you, and you were talking about that. So, uh,
Yeah, very early on, that was my pitch to my editor, was I wanted to do like a reverse Lolita, and she was like sold. And then I started writing it, and I was like, well, it doesn't really work the same.
right,
Like,
yeah,
so I had to give the character more motivations than, you know,
yeah,
Hubert has in Lolita. She
yeah.
couldn't just be a pervert, you know. No one would have.
Well,
That
it's
just
just
wasn't going to sail.
I think like what I love about your writing, especially in the most recent book, is how you're totally in it with her with the main character, and how just like because we've all made bad decisions, and so
Oh yeah,
how she gradually gets to where she gets, because when you hear about something like that or anything
yeah.
else, it's like, how does anyone get in that position? And then you read it and you're like, oh shit, like
That's how.
I don't like how I'm feeling right now. I don't like this. Because I can.
Yay! Yeah. One of my sort of, I guess, ways of approaching the book, the worst kind of want, was reactions to Catalina and Elsa and Catalina.
Mhm.
I had a couple like reviews that were saying that Elsa was, what did they call her? They called her um not slutty, promiscuous. That's what it was. And I thought,
Okay.
do we still call girls or women promiscuous? Like, is that still something that? And also, hold my beer. I'll show you promiscuity.
Right.
Like,
Only, I mean, only if you want to shame somebody. I mean, I haven't,
exactly.
you don't
Yeah.
hear that word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I take into task the idea of an unlikable female character. And I wrote Elsa specifically to be a difficult character to love, but
Mhm.
still, I wanted her to be a responsible, good daughter and a good sister, but also show that that's can also be problematic, right? There's really no easy way to be a woman, I guess, is is
Yeah.
what I've drawn. My conclusion from both of those books
Well,
is there's no right way.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, from a male perspective, I love reading stuff like this because it's just we'll never know how it feels to swap places, but it's like, oh my God, I mean, this is as best as it can be done as far as that goes.
Well, it's funny. I had I can't even remember who, some male reader of mine, like an early reader, had read some pages, and a friend of mine, and he was like, "Well, I actually had a relationship with an older woman, so I really related to Donato." And I was like, "Well, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to trigger anything. I apologize
Oh
if
wow.
that's the case." Yeah, isn't that
That's
funny?
Yeah, no, that's funny that that he shared that with you. I think I would take that to the
Oh, you know
grave.
what? That was a radio show,
Oh
actually.
wow.
So yeah, that's out there in the world.
So it's out
He's
there.
yeah, yeah. I'm not spilling the beans then. You can look
Yeah.
that up. That
Okay,
somebody told me that.
I'll check that out. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, I think like so from these two books, and then I've got a little bit of wind of the one you're working on right now. It sounds like you you have the coolest research for novels. Like you have these destination places, and I mean, I guess because I'm not from California, but I used to live in Long Beach, so I know Catalina,
Uh,
but it just seems like you go to these really cool places. Like, you were at the was it Beverly Hills Hotel? You were at for
Beverly
the
Hills Hotel. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So I mean, I it's funny how it's sort of worked out that way. But like Catalina, growing up out here and having lived in Long Beach, you understand the idea, the allure of Catalina is that it's just
Mhm.
an island that you can see off the coast here,
Yeah,
and it kind of gives it this sort of mystery, right? And if you did you go there when you were living in Long
yeah.
Beach? Did you ever travel there?
Only once. Yeah.
And it kind of gives you this weird perspective, right? When you get
Hmm.
there and you can turn around and look back at Los Angeles, and it's
Yeah.
sort of like this weird, I don't know, perspective that you don't really get anywhere else. So that intrigued me when I was writing Catalina, but also I was very poor writing Catalina, and I knew, I know that I tend to write about dark topics, but I want them to take place somewhere that creates conflict. So I knew I wanted it to take place on an island. And Catalina I could afford to go to, and I grew up out here. So I was like, perfect,
Nice.
Catalina works. Italy came about because I swore to myself if I ever got like an advance on a novel, I would set a book somewhere really, really amazing and I'd travel there.
Uh,
But Italy just worked out. I actually tried Lisbon first. I thought Oxford might work too. And then I realized you can't really do sexy in cold weather climates very easily. just not sultry sexy, right? Like the
No, you
body,
can't. I haven't thought of that. That's true.
you know, like at first I thought it would take place during a blizzard in Oxford, and then I realized how difficult it is to take off layers and make, you know what I mean? Like it's a little too on the nose also. So
Yeah,
I thought, I'd never been to Italy, so I went there, and I thought actually this really works with the ruins. And I mean, the death and sex is already built into the
sure.
country.
Yeah,
It's just part of the lifestyle. So having an American who, I feel like we, even if you're not from California, our culture exists without a whole lot of history weighing it down,
oh
right?
sure, yeah, absolutely.
So it's weird for us to go to Italy, countries like that, and feel the weight of time, right? So that worked perfectly. The third book, I love hotels, and I wanted to take place in like a luxury hotel, someplace that I could never afford staying.
Hmm.
And there's so many places like that in Los Angeles, and they tend to be. I don't know if it's like this where you are, but in Los Angeles, no, buildings aren't really saved here. Like they tend to be razed and turned into something else, and
Hmm.
that's just part of Los Angeles's culture. But hotels manage to stick around. So Beverly Hills Hotel, the Chateau Marmont, um, even in Catalina, I have her stay at I think the Miramont in the beginning, and that's been there since the 20s. It's just
Hmm.
changed names. So I've always wanted to have to write a book that just takes place in a hotel. So I did stay there. I know it's a
Nice. Yeah,
tough life. But you know, when you make writing your life, you've got to make it fun for you, you know. It's dark topics that I'm dealing with, but you've got to set it somewhere that creates conflict, you know, with
right,
that.
right, right. No, that's so cool. I mean, and to speak about like, I thought the characters are likable. I mean, in
Oh,
their own
thank
way,
you.
because
I think so too.
and that's a big pet peeve of mine was when people say you have to write someone that's likable. Because I was in a writer's workshop a while back, and I honestly thought my protagonist was likable, and it got skewered. Like, no, he like I don't see anything redeeming about this guy, and I'm like, well, he's a lot like me, so I hope you. But I mean, it can be complex. It's like what you said; they can make some really awful decisions, do some bad things, but
Yeah.
that's not their entire identity.
But I think it says something about the reader too, I think, and
Yeah,
about what readers are searching for, especially now when they're reading, right? Escape, redemption, of course, because we're living in a time where we want to feel like, you know, humans deserve to still be here, right? Like we're not totally bad. Please, you know, the climate change, the pandemic, like we want to believe in something, right? And I think it's hard when we read characters that make us look at ourselves, and do a little digging, you know.
yeah,
It's I mean, you see unlikable characters, mostly that label is applied to women, but oftentimes, I mean,
mhm,
Bukowski's characters,
yeah,
it's just him and he's a terrible person,
yeah.
you know. You know, but you don't hear anyone ever saying, oh, he's unlikable, because you know there's a part of humanity that's being expressed there and we can relate to it, right?
Mhm,
And
yeah,
that's really any unlikable character's job, is that maybe they're doing things that you wouldn't do, but you understand why, right?
right.
Because we're all human and it's universal.
Absolutely. So I mean, like, I what are those people called? They're like beta readers, but they read to like tell you what's offensive in your
Oh
book.
yes, sensitivity readers, yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Did you
I
have
mean,
those?
no, no, but I met
Oh.
one. I met one, and they were not likable. They were not a likable person. I
I
think
mean, I've never had a sensitivity reader read anything. I mean,
it just seems like a bad
uh,
idea. I think I want to put because I'm working on something right now. Maybe I could put a character of a sensitivity reader in the book. I think that would be interesting and
I mean, it
sufferable.
is. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like sensitivity readers are there for if you're going to write outside of your scope, right? So like
Sure.
I'm not a black woman. So if I'm
Right.
going to write a character, I want it to feel real and earned. So I would have a sensitivity reader, most likely a black woman, read that character.
And that makes
And
that makes
you know,
sense
that makes
definitely.
sense. But to have somebody read it and tell me, oh, gee, I find your character unlikable, despicable, and I don't understand why she would do any of these things, I'd be like, well, then don't buy the book. Like,
Right.
it's, you know,
Exactly.
I do think it's sad though that there are a lot of readers that I think they have expectations and they want to see your character get redeemed, right? They want there to
Mhm.
be a moment where they, I don't know, everything comes together for them, or there's something that happens that, I don't know, like the swelling of violins, you know, and then everything's fixed.
Right.
But I really feel like if in both books, Catalina and the Worst Kind of Want, and most novels that I like, you know, reading, Play It As It Lays, you know, Annie Bukowski, Lolita, when
Yeah.
you get to the ending, it feels earned. And when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, there was no other way except for this. This was going to be a car crash the entire time. It was just in slow
Yeah.
motion. I was watching it, you know?
Well, those are the kind of stories that stick with us, I think. I mean, I read a lot. I mean, we all people I interview, we all read a lot, and we forget a lot too. But the stuff that like sticks with me, at least for myself, are books like your books. Then I was talking with
Oh,
Steven last night about his book Boulevard, and how, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but how that ended. I was just did not see that coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is in a book. I mean, I loved it, and it's gonna stay with me, you know. But I get that because we were watching. There's a series on Netflix called Caliphate. Is that out of Sweden? Um,
oh yeah, yeah.
it's really good. So me and my wife are watching it, and it has a really it has an ending that she was not happy with, and I was like devastated. But I love this story. It's so awful and amazing all in one. But yeah, those are the things that stick in my
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, I feel like a good example is the show Fleabag, right? Like
Hmm.
the first season was excellent and very dark and was nowhere near as popular as the second season. The
Right.
second season was still had the humor and the biting sarcasm, and it still tackled a lot of the same issues, but it had a love story, and it felt lighter in a lot of ways, right? And it kind of gave the first season a little bit more to work with. Also, they kind of work together. Um, but yeah, I just feel like there's the endings are hard. You know, it's
Oh
always the
yeah.
toughest part. I just finished the first draft of The Pink Hotel, and the ending, once I got there, it always feels like like a push, just like every day you're writing and you're writing and you're trying to pull those strings to the very end. And then when you do get to the end, you're like, is that where I wanted things to fall? Like,
Hmm.
or and if I'm not where I wanted it to go, that means somewhere along the way I the thread went somewhere else, right? And I've got to go back and figure out where that was. And yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. In your work, so like, I mean, I guess every piece is different, but do you kind of have an ending in your mind, or do you just go for it
You
and it brings you there?
uh they were each a little different. Catalina, it was sort of I'm a huge Jean Reese fan, and her book, Good Morning Midnight, I kind of wanted to do like a retelling of that, like a modernization. That was a huge inspiration for Catalina. So I always knew the ending was going to be more or less the snake bite its tail, which is how that book ends. And but I fell in love with Elsa, and I wanted her to have a different ending. So I kept trying. I must have tried like 20 different endings, like the type of endings where she just like rode off into the sunset, you know, because I
Hmm.
just wanted her to have, I didn't want it to, Jane Reese's book came out 100 years ago. So I wanted to believe that if a woman fucks up and has a lot of sex and, you know, makes wrong decisions in 2016 when the book came out, that doesn't mean necessarily everything falls apart, right? But then eventually I realized, or maybe my editor was like, Liska, you this is the only way it can be. And I was like, oh, you're right. So
Right.
I did it. And then the second book, it kind of hit me as I was writing towards the end. I thought I wasn't 100% sure how it was going to end. I knew specific things were going to happen without giving too much away. um, but the last line in it had been the last line from the first draft. Like as soon as I wrote that very last scene, I thought, oh well, that's what the whole book is about. And then that meant I had to go back and make that theme larger in the book, because that was always where that was going to end up. It just felt right. The third book, it's hard because it was just the first draft. So I feel confident about the ending, but I'm meeting with my editor next week. So maybe she'll be like, no, mistakes were made. I don't know yet. I don't want to knock on wood. I don't want to say whether or not I did it right. It is close to what I imagined.
Oh,
maybe a little bit more insane. I will tell you that this is by far, part of it is that we're living in an insane time. So I think that really affected me while I was writing it. I wrote a huge portion of it during a pandemic while in shelter in place or safer at home or whatever Los Angeles was under. But there is an orgy scene at the Beverly Hills Hotel that's interrupted by a mountain lion. That does happen in the book.
I'm sold. That's great.
I remember writing the scene and I was like, oh, so this is gonna, and that's the middle of the book. Shit just gets crazier from there.
I love it. I love it.
when I pitched the book, I pitched it as, do you know the book High Rise?
No,
it was turned into a film too. J.G. Ballard or J.D. Ballard. But it's High Rise meets Eloise is what I told her I wanted it to be.
You got to read that.
Yeah, right. She was like, sold. I'll give you a 2-book deal based on that alone.
That's incredible. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, speaking of the pandemic,
right? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So how is that? I've been talking to a lot of writers about, some people are really thriving and they're like, oh, well, it's not much different from how I live my life anyways. And then some people are they've hit a wall and they cannot produce anything.
The hardest thing is a routine, I think, right? So like when I was working on the first draft, it gave me structure. Monday through Friday, I got up, I did whatever I would do in the morning, go on a walk, go swimming or something, and then I would sit down to write, right? And that was my day. And so months went by. I don't even remember March through now. And it was great because I was somewhere else. I was fully invested in my own world where I had control. And that's frankly the best thing anyone can do during a pandemic is pretend that they have control over something, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what I was doing. Once I turned the book in, which was about 2 weeks ago, I was like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I think I just kind of wandered the house for a while until my husband was like, just start something new. I don't care if it's an essay. I don't care if it's just like a reading club, just do something. You have to give your day some structure. So luckily I've been working on the UCLA stuff, but also I started working on an essay too, just to pretend that I have a reason for living.
Is that the one with that amazing first line that you posted on Facebook? I won't repeat it, but I think
I was pretty drunk.
I was laughing so hard, and I said, I don't.
Well, I'll give you the first line. The first line is
give it to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I can verbatim. Goodbye, Chateau Marmont, you elusive cunt. I think it's the first. I have a huge history with the Chateau Marmont, but also like a non-history. And when I found out that they were turning it into a private members only hotel, I think is what they're doing with it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, that's the sort of angle I'm taking with the essay.
Okay.
Is like, because Los Angeles it's quickly turning into a members only city, more or less. And I was born and raised here. Exactly. And I kind of feel like anyone that was born here automatically gets to walk into the Chateau Marmont at any time they want, if they want to, and be like, give me a table. That should just be a rule. I don't want a table, but you don't get to tell me I don't get to come here,
Yeah.
So, I started writing that the other day. It's turned into a long just diatribe where at the end of the day I have a couple drinks like a Valium and I start writing.
I love it.
My anger.
That was the best first line I've seen in a long time.
Thank you. I was so mad when I started writing because I was like, well, also I think David Hewlin was like, do you have any essays for a journal that he's starting at USC? And I was like, what am I feeling? He asked, what are you writing on? What are your thoughts about? And I was like, this is my first thought came out. Perfect. We'll just go with this.
I'm so angry because I go to LA at least like twice a year, and I've driven by that a million times, and I'm always like, I'm gonna go there with someone who's from here because I just and maybe I
Yeah.
won't have my shot.
You might not get your shot. I mean, when I was I tried to email them. So the Beverly Hills Hotel has been here for, I think, even longer than them. And when I reached out to them to see if I could stay there and told them that I was writing a novel and stuff, they have like a whole PR section of the hotel that, they work with you on a price, which for a room, which is still ridiculously expensive. I mean, like absurd. I think the bungalows are $20,000 a night.
Oh my God.
$20,000 a night. And they're always booked. So there's people out there that can afford staying in that hotel. It's just not us. But still they worked with me. The moment I reached out to the Chateau Marmont, they were like, sorry, not for us.
Not
and
for
I was
us.
like, excuse me?
Oh.
But I have a credit card. I just wanted to come and do some research, but okay, cool.
Wow. Yeah, a
I know.
little out of my skill. I usually stay at a Ramada Inn in a Burbank, so which could be its own book in itself.
I was just going to say, that's its own novel. That could also be, maybe that's my fourth novel. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to write a novel that takes place in the valley.
I love it. I love Burbank, actually.
Oh, me too. I mean, we hopped around as a kid. So, I mean, I've lived everywhere from Brentwood to West Hills to downtown Crenshaw, and now I'm in Pasadena. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've just vortexed around here. The thing that makes me so angry about the Chateau Marmont is that my grandmother grew up in the house behind it.
Oh, wow.
And so when she died, her wake, because she used to go there all the time, that was like her kind of her second home. If like her parents used to go out to parties and stuff, and if no one was home to let her in after school, she would know to go to the Chateau Marmont, and they all knew her by name. She was like 8, and they'd give her a table and just feed her until her parents showed up. It was a different time. It was like the
Oh my
50s or
goodness.
60s or
Right.
something. Probably the 50s. And her wake was held there when
Wow.
I was probably like 9 or something. And that was the first time I've been there. And then the second time I went maybe a few years ago to write an essay. And that's it. I've been there twice. But I just feel like, how dare you? My
Right.
grandmother's wake was there, and you're going to tell me I can never come back? I don't even want to go, but now I'm mad. You know?
Have you seen, yeah, you should be mad. Have you seen that movie? I think it's called Somewhere. Sofia Coppola. So it's shot
Oh,
all,
yes. All
yeah.
shot there. I'm
So
sure they're going to be members. I'm sure
yeah.
the
Oh
Coppolas
yeah.
are members.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, of course. But I just,
Yeah.
that was kind of like my insight to see inside what it looked like, because I never have been in, but
You know, it's uh, it's a little disappointing, actually.
that's what I was
It's a
thinking when I,
little worn down, um, but it's got its ghosts. It feels like the hard thing about growing up in Southern California too is that we have Disneyland. So if you went there a lot as a child or even a few times, it kind of everything starts to feel fake. I also grew up in an industry household, so I've been to a lot of sets and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
walking into a place like the Chateau Marmont, you're like, this isn't a real hotel. This is a setting for a hotel, right? Like it just feels that way. Everything's small because it was built in like the 20s or 30s like that.
Mhm.
So the elevators can fit maybe 2 people,
Oh
you know.
wow.
Yeah, the hallways are really narrow
Well,
and stuff.
after this new book, you'll be a member. I'm sure, and we'll all go.
No, they can't have me. No, hell no. No way. I mean, we'll see if the Beverly Hills Hotel doesn't sue me. I mean, they were so nice when I went and stayed there. And I'm a huge proponent for, my editor jokingly calls it method writing, um, which is where you just, you go to the places that the book's taking place, and you really delve into the characters and their emotional states and stuff like that. So I've had an idea of what the Beverly Hills Hotel was going to be like, and I had an idea of what the kind of wealth is like, what that goes there. But going to stay gave me a completely different perspective on the type of people who work in a hotel like that. It is their career, and they're very, very proud of it. They do not view it as being a servant, despite that is exactly what they are. And so much so that their owner is an actual sultan. Like
Right. Yeah.
the staff gave me a tour of like the back of house, and they were so proud to show me their kitchen that has like a snow cone machine. just a free snow cone machine. And they were like, you know, also we get great health benefits. We only have a small copay. And I was like, shouldn't we want more from a sultan? You know, like, shouldn't, but also I get it. This is America, and that's capitalism. This,
Sure.
right, in a nutshell. Like, thank you for the snow cone and the medium copay that I have, you know, when I need to go to the doctor. That's just the way, you know.
Yeah. No, that's it. I always love talking to people who grew up there because it is, you know, I don't live, I'm in Salt Lake, so it's a 10-hour drive. I used to drive down a lot, and then a flight is, you're there really fast. So
Yeah.
I'm fairly familiar with it, but it's always had this allure that I feel like the people that I, you know, who've grown up there, just, they can love it, but it, you know, they don't
Well, I
feel
think
that.
there's two sides to it. I mean, there's the Los Angeles who grow up in, but also Los Angeles is also kind of a state of mind, as is California. It exists in all of our consciousness, right? Like, it's just, it takes up space more than other states do, right? Because
Totally,
there's,
yeah.
you know, so like, it's hard to live in a place that also has its own, you know, stardom, you know, that
Mhm.
affects you. Because, you know, as much as it is, sort of sounds like it could be a fake made up thing, it is Los Angeles, right? Like,
Right.
weird things happen here. Like, my husband and I had our anniversary yesterday, and we went out to Malibu, and we were just walking through Point Doom or something, and we ran into somebody, a friend of a friend, who was like, oh, why don't you come back to our house and have drinks? And I was like, sure. Their house was a beautiful mansion on the side of Point Doom. And we stayed there until sunset looking at her grandparents' art collection. And at one point I was like, this could
Wow.
only happen here, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah, totally. Wow.
but also that builds on the myth of Los Angeles and California. Like, we all knew this is very LA for this to be happening right now,
Yeah.
for us to be
Yeah.
drinking just gin on the rocks and watching dolphins, you know.
Oh, that's incredible.
That was, yeah,
That's a
it was just a random thing.
that's a great anniversry. That way to go.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
thought so. It was unplanned, but it was great.
That's those are the best. That's the best. Yeah. I think I love LA because I feel like I'm in a scene from Swingers. Like a couple years ago, me and Tony were at a screening, and this 20-something girl comes up to us, and she looks at me. She's like looked at me like she recognized me, and she said, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a high school teacher. And it was over. She just looked over at Tony. Oh, what do you do? And I was like, this is Swingers.
Oh, that's
I
hilarious
Yeah,
though.
it was I didn't feel too bad. It was funny.
But that's a classic Los Angeles
What do
story. I
you
mean,
what do
that's
you do?
just,
What do you do?
yeah, those are, you should have lied.
I should have. I know. I wasn't
I
quick enough on my
actually,
feet.
just like, play it up. I sculpt young minds is what you should have said.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's
That could
great.
mean anything, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I could say that. I sculpt young minds.
Well, yeah, you do. Yeah.
Actually, I have a few nieces, and they're all under the age of 10, and they know I'm a writer. They're just, now that they're learning how to read, they're like, well, when can I read Aunt Lily's books? And their parents are like, not
Nope.
now. Maybe in like a couple decades, but not right now. It's so funny.
That's cool. They're interested though, that they
Oh yeah, they just, I
exciting.
think one of them asked me the last time we talked, she just said, are you famous? And I said, what do you mean famous? And she said, like, oh, I can't even remember. It was some, like, Taylor Swift or someone like that. And I was like, no, I'm not like that. No. Writers, I don't know any writer that's like that. Maybe like Toni Morrison or someone huge, but like, I don't know. Do writers ever become?
But even when they're famous, like people don't recognize them on the street. You know, they can kind of, for the most
That's
part,
true.
unless you're Stephen King, you
I
know,
don't know if I would recognize him. I've
I don't
never been
think I would. I
recognized.
don't think I would. We go up to Maine. My wife's from Vermont, so we go up to Maine every year or two. And I was like, I want to go up to and see his house because I don't know if you've heard about what his house looks like.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've been meaning to. So one of these days, but I mean, he's getting up there, so I don't think I would probably recognize him if I saw him.
Or his son too. I don't know if I would recognize him. That's the other thing, is that we only know the authors based off, more or less, their author photos, right? And those can
Right.
be very misleading.
20 years
You know?
old,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you're very much following like their festival circuit or whatever it
Yeah.
is that they're. Maybe I don't know if I would even recognize J.K. Rowling on the street.
I wouldn't.
I'd
I
not.
wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
But it is funny that there is sort of the same, I don't know, I guess, like like vibe around being like an author, a published writer. Like people who aren't in the industry are just like, oh, well then it just must be champagne all the time. And I'm like, no, I have to have another job. It's not like that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, so with Catalina, I could see that as a movie, and then with the worst kind of want, I was thinking that would be an amazing series. I mean, I'm sure you probably have entertained the idea of you know, selling the rights and getting produced.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
your thoughts on
Catalina
that?
yeah, I would love to see them both on the screen, especially because there's so many streaming services now that are doing so much stuff. Catalina, I don't think there was a lot of talk going back and forth, but I think what finally torpedoed that was that she was considered unlikable, which, you know, again, that's why I was like, hold my beer, you know, I'll show you unlikable. Let me see what happens if I take a 42-year-old woman and have her seduce a 17-year-old, or maybe he seduces her. I still not sure what happened there. But that actually, The Worst Kind of Want is in development.
Oh, great.
For a film, yeah. That's
exciting.
Yeah. So that's very cool. And, you know, they're hopeful with this third book. But we'll see. I mean, that's the dream, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's the dream. And then I'm talking to Steven about the, have you seen his anthology, The Hollywood versus the Author?
Yes. Yeah. I have it.
Oh yeah. So like, there's some amazing stories, and then there's some downright terrifying things in there.
I know. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a great film agent, and I rely on her, just, you know, like just her, like her genius, basically. I don't know anything about that. I grew up in a post-production family, so I have no idea what it takes to get something into development and then out of development. I just know from a post-production standpoint that it's a dream, and if it happens, great, but most likely it's not going to.
Yeah.
So I've never written a book thinking, oh, well, this will definitely turn into a show, because, you know, I've been living in Los Angeles long enough to know the chances of that happening are so slim that you just have to enjoy writing the actual book yourself, right? It plays as a film in my own head when I'm writing it. So I
mean, it's icing on the cake, right? So if that happens, great. Yeah.
Well, but Tony's been lucky too. Tony and Steven both were.
Oh yeah.
Both, yeah.
Tony's book got made into a film. Yeah, that's
Yeah, to where he was even a part of it. Now that doesn't happen for a whole lot of writers.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, he wrote the screenplay, and he was on set, and
they asked me if I wanted to do the screenplay for The Worst Kind of Want, and I was like, well, didn't I do that? Isn't that what the book is? You want me to write it a second time? No, I don't want to do that.
Just plug it in the final draft, right? Just like copy and
paste. Take out the descriptions, you know, like that's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, because I was like, I mean, you know, I love, especially like a series, if a good series, but I mean, a good film is incredible too. But when reading both of your books, I was like, I would want to see these on some kind of screen. So that's
me
amazing.
Too.
Yeah,
I would love that. Wait until the third book. I mean, I hope, knock on wood. Yeah, I had so much fun writing it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love hotels too. So I
love them. Really I miss them. With the pandemic, I miss them. I miss being able to drink in them and watching people and stuff. Not even so much stay in them, just a hotel bar, I feel like, is just rife with possibilities.
Yeah.
You know? It's great. It's the perfect place to set anything, a movie, a TV show, a novel. I mean, Salty Towers, right?
Like I love that show.
It's perfect. And I'm all about like You've probably noticed from both books, getting characters into a space, a confined space with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So a sailboat, right? Masseria and Puglia, where you have two families staying together. And then in this one, a hotel. I mean, a hotel during the fire season. So that's the premise of that book is you have massive, it's weird. The premise of that book was that there was going to be massive fires that triggered riots because the poor areas were being burned down and the rich areas weren't, because that happens here.
Yeah.
And then we have been having so much strife politically and culturally and civically that I was like, am I a witch? Did I make this? So the joke in our house is, can I just write a book where I like everything's peaceful and I make money and we're all happy and there's
no one will read
pandemic.
that book. No one will read that. That's so boring.
I know. But it is funny. I mean, because I wrote a scene where I never thought this would happen. I said that the National Guard had taken over Rodeo Drive
Wow.
and the Beverly Center, and then that happened.
Oh
and
my God.
It was both funny but also frustrating, because I was like, well, now I have to make it crazier and I don't know where to go from here, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh wow.
I already thought this was, funny and weird, and I was pushing it a certain way, and then it actually happened, and I was there for those protests, so it was like, well, now this is a real thing too. It's not something to make fun of or make light of, and
Right.
that changes the whole book. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
For sure.
When do you have any idea? I know you just finished the first draft. Is there any timeline when we could maybe expect the book, or is that up in
they want to do, I think, spring. What are we in 2022? Spring 2022.
Okay.
I think, because I think the publishing world has decided this year is a bust.
Let's stop for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think everybody knows 2021 is up in the air. Right.
Yeah.
So originally they wanted to do fall of that year. But then they pushed it back to winter, and now we're discussing winter spring possibilities. I would love to have a spring book just because I'm a spring baby and I want a spring baby of my own.
Yeah.
That would be nice,
Well, that's great. Okay, I think we're good. I mean, anything else you want to? I mean, I love your work, and I want as many people to read your stuff. I kind of force your book on people whenever.
Thank you.
So I'm always, you got to read. Yeah, you got to.
Actually, the reason why, well, I'm having a drink because it's just Thursday or someday during the pandemic, but it's also because the book, The Worst Kind of Want, came out in the UK today.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has a different cover and all, it's,
neat.
It's fun. Yeah. It's interesting to watch a book travel around the world and see how other cultures have to reskin it and, give it to their population. Right. It's like, well, do we give, like here they sort of did it from the angle of like a thriller, suspense, psychological. In England they were like more like I don't want to say YA, but they tried to like make it younger, and I was like, nope, that's okay. But if that's how you think
people
your population's going to yeah so it's interesting to see that happen as it travels.
That's great. Yeah, congratulations. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of good things in the pipeline. I mean,
thank you.
This is a rough time for all of us, so it's nice to hear some positive things coming your way.
I hope so. I mean, knock on wood. Now that we've talked about it, who knows? I mean, every day is different, like who knows what's happening tomorrow? Gosh.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. So,
and congratulations on your podcast too.
Yeah, I figured why not? I've been wanting to do it for at least a year, and then I'm like, you know what, we're all doing interviews online anyway, so I might as well just go for it. And
absolutely.
So thank you so much.
And I love your bookcase behind you.
Thanks.
Sculpture? Who is that sculpture?
It's Elvis. Elvis.
Is it Elvis?
Let me grab it. Hold on, you got to see it.
Okay. Oh, that's serious. That's not like a. Yeah. That's a serious sculpture.
I'm not.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even an Elvis. I like Elvis, fine, but I got this actually at an antique shop in Long Beach. So yeah, and I've kept
Oh,
it this whole
wow.
time.
What does it
So
say on the base? Does it just say
um,
Elvis
right
Presley?
here, yeah. So it
Yeah.
just says Elvis Presley, and it has the dates, his dates, and then right here it's carved in Elvis. So
What
yeah,
is the story there? Like, did somebody just need that? They
I don't
wanted that,
know.
or
I don't
I
know.
love.
So it's just
It's a very
there.
specific era of Elvis too. He's
Yeah,
young, you
yeah.
know.
It was only $8 too. So what a steal.
Oh, steal, absolute steal. Yeah.
But
Look
I've,
at
I've
that fox.
I've tried. I brought it everywhere I've moved. I lived in Boston for a while, so it came with me there, and then,
Oh,
back home in
Boston.
Salt Lake now. So here I am with Elvis. But yeah, he comes with me wherever I go.
Good. I like that. He watches over you.
He does. He does. Well, great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And then I will probably the end of September, early October, and I'll send you
Okay.
I'll send you a link in the next week or two.
Okay.
And if there's anything you're like, I'll take that out. I don't want to, I don't want that in.
If I sound drunk or
You don't.
ridiculous,
You don't at
then
all.
then cut it.
No, you sound great. So you're good. You're good.
Perfect. Then I trust you.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
trust you.
Cool.
Well, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can't wait for the new stuff. So I'm really.
I'll make sure you're on the list to get the ARC. So
Yes. Thank you.
when
Okay.
it's ready, you'll be on the first round of
Very
mailers.
excited. Yeah. Yeah. Excited for that for sure. So.
All right.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Yeah. You
Talk
too.
to you later.
See ya. Bye.
All right.